Beyond the felony, rewriting your story. When the world says you can't have, you ever had that moment when someone looks at you and all they see is your worst mistake? That split second when you realize they've reduced your entire existence to a single line on your record? When your past becomes a prison more confining than any cell could ever be? I recently had the extraordinary privilege of interviewing Shaquan Cotton, a woman who knows exactly what that feels like and who refused to let it define her destiny. Shaquan isn't just someone who overcame a felony conviction, she's a revolutionary force dismantling our entire concept of redemption. Her work has transformed countless lives by showing that our darkest chapters can become the foundation for our most powerful contributions to the world. Here's the uncomfortable truth that nobody tells you: the world loves a good box. Society thrives on taking complex, beautiful, messy humans and flattening them into convenient categories: felon, ex con, criminal record, as if these labels could possibly contain the entirety of who you are or what you might become. As if your worst day should overshadow your best possibilities. But what happens when you refuse that box? What happens when you look at the narrative written for you and say, actually, I'll be writing my own story from here? That's the question at the heart of what I learned from Shaquan. And it's a question that doesn't just apply to those with felony convictions. It applies to anyone who's ever been told their past mistakes define their future possibilities. Think about it. We've all done things we're not proud of. Maybe not things that landed us in legal trouble, but things that haunt us nonetheless. The relationship we sabotaged, the opportunity we squandered, the trust we betrayed, and in those moments we face a choice. Do we let that mistake become our identity, or do we use it as fuel for transformation? When I spoke with Shaquan, what struck me wasn't just her resilience, though, trust me, this woman has resilience in spades. What struck me was her absolute refusal to accept the story others had written for her, a story that said her potential was capped, a story that said her dreams had an asterisk next to them, a story that whispered, you can try, but you'll never fully overcome this. I'm reminded of Yolanda Davis, whose journey mirrors aspects of what Shaquan experienced. Yolanda faced setbacks that could have completely derailed her ambitions: professional obstacles, personal hardships, the kind of challenges that make you question everything you thought you knew about yourself. But instead of letting those challenges define her, Yolanda did something remarkable. She reframed her pain as purpose. She took her struggles and transformed them into a platform for inspiring other Black professionals. She went on the Soft Girl Era podcast and shared her story publicly, not as a confession, but as an offering, a way of saying to others, your brokenness can become beauty with perseverance. I had to decide, Yolanda shared, whether my pain would be a period or a comma in my story. She chose the comma, she chose continuation. She chose to build something meaningful from the very experiences that threatened to break her. And that's exactly what Shaquan demonstrated too: the audacity to believe that a felony conviction is a chapter in your story, not the whole book. The courage to say, watch me, when the world has already written you off. But here's where it gets interesting, because this journey of redefining yourself isn't just about proving others wrong, it's about something much more profound: learning to prioritize yourself after years, sometimes decades, of putting everyone else first. This brings me to Landis Harwell's powerful story. Landis had achieved what many would consider success in the corporate world. She had the title, the salary, the external validation, but she was exhausted, completely drained from trying to meet the external expectations of Black excellence while neglecting her own well being. Sound familiar? How many of us, especially Black women, have been taught that our value lies in what we can do for others? How many of us have internalized the message that rest is lazy, that boundaries are selfish, that putting ourselves first is somehow a betrayal of our communities? Landis chose a different path. She embraced what some call the soft girl era philosophy, the radical notion that rest isn't just a luxury, it's a necessity, that boundaries aren't just personal preferences, they're professional requirements. That authenticity isn't just a buzzword, it's a survival strategy. I realized, Landis reflected, that my exhaustion wasn't a badge of honor, it was a warning sign. So she started prioritizing rest. She started saying no without explanation. She started treating her energy as the precious resource it is. And here's the plot twist that nobody tells you: she became more productive, not less, more impactful, not less, more fulfilled, not less. When Shaquan shared similar insights with me, I couldn't help but think about how counterintuitive this seems in a culture that glorifies the grind. We're told success comes from pushing harder, sleeping less, sacrificing more. But what if true success actually comes from the opposite? From knowing when to rest, when to say no, when to put yourself first. I'm reminded of Sabrina's story from the Hood Soft Life podcast. Sabrina grew up in challenging environments where struggle wasn't just expected, it was glorified. The narrative was clear. As a Black woman, suffering was your birthright and endurance was your superpower. But Sabrina dared to question that narrative. She focused intentionally on healing first, before relationships, before career advancement, before anything else. She practiced daily affirmations like, I will attract the partner I deserve. And in doing so, she didn't just break generational cycles of trauma, she created a new template for what Black womanhood could look like. I had to learn that putting myself first wasn't selfish, Sabrina shared. It was necessary if I wanted to have anything meaningful to give to others. This is the revelation that changed everything for Shaquan, too. After years of carrying family burdens, of being the strong one, of putting her own dreams on hold, she realized that true elevation required prioritizing herself, not out of selfishness, but out of self preservation. Now, I can already hear some of you thinking, that's nice for them, but my situation is different. I have responsibilities. People depend on me. I can't just focus on myself. I hear you. And so would Shaquan, because this isn't about abandoning your responsibilities or the people you love. It's about recognizing that you can't pour from an empty cup. It's about understanding that self care isn't a luxury, it's a prerequisite for sustainable success. And here's where resilience enters the conversation. Because let's be honest, this journey isn't easy. There will be days when you're exhausted, when the weight of your past mistakes feels crushing, when the expectations of others seem impossible to meet. In those moments, resilience isn't about never getting tired, it's about pushing through exhaustion with prayer, faith, and grit until you reach your next level. It's about being what Shaquan calls a go getter, someone who refuses to quit even when every fiber of their being is screaming for rest. But, and this is crucial, being a go getter doesn't mean neglecting yourself. It means knowing when to push and when to pause, when to strive and when to surrender, when to hustle and when to heal. This balance is particularly challenging for Black women who've been conditioned to wear busyness like a badge of honor, to see exhaustion as a sign of commitment rather than a warning sign from our bodies, to equate rest with weakness and boundaries with selfishness. Shaquan's journey teaches us that true strength lies in rejecting these false dichotomies, in embracing both ambition and ease, in pursuing both success and serenity, in being both a force to be reckoned with professionally and a sanctuary for yourself personally. So, where does this leave us? Not with platitudes or empty inspiration, but with a challenge to take one bold step this week, focused solely on you. Maybe it's setting a new boundary at work. Maybe it's investing time or money in something just for your growth, not for your children, not for your partner, not for your community, but for you. Maybe it's simply giving yourself permission to rest without guilt. Whatever it is, commit to it unapologetically and watch how honoring yourself opens doors you never imagined possible. Because here's what Shaquan's story ultimately teaches us: your past does not define your potential. Your mistakes are not your identity. Your struggles are not your destiny. You are not the worst thing you've ever done. You are not the hardest challenge you've ever faced. You are not the heaviest burden you've ever carried. You are possibility in human form. You are resilience made flesh. You are the author of your own story, and that story is still being written. So I challenge you today: pick up the pen, turn the page, and write the next chapter with courage, with compassion, and with an unwavering commitment to yourself. Because when you do, when you refuse to be defined by your past, when you prioritize your well being without apology, when you keep going, even when you're exhausted, you don't just change your own life, you create a template for others to do the same. As Shaquan would say, your elevation requires your isolation. Sometimes you have to step away from the noise, the expectations, the should haves and could haves, to hear your own voice clearly, to remember who you are beneath the labels and limitations others have placed on you. The world will try to put you in a box. It will try to tell you who you are based on your worst moments. It will try to convince you that redemption has limits, that transformation has an expiration date, that some mistakes can never be unmade. But today, I'm asking you to prove them wrong, not with defensiveness or desperation, but with the quiet determination of someone who knows their worth beyond their wounds, with the steady resolve of someone who understands that healing isn't linear, that growth isn't guaranteed, but that both are always, always possible. Your story isn't finished. Your potential isn't capped. Your future isn't foreclosed. And the most revolutionary act you can commit, believing that, living that, being that. Because in a world determined to define you by your past, the most powerful rebellion is to become someone they never saw coming.